This is the All Done podcast. I'm Tracy. It's my boy Mike. How you feeling, Mike?
I'm good, brother. A little bit tired. How you doing?
Man. I'm hanging in there. You want to jump right into it. So today we're going to touch on some current events. A lot of stuff going on still in the world. But I figure we'll start off with black men hanging in trees around the country. The number was 5. I think they knocked it down to 4 because apparently one of the men was Hispanic and the family came out and said it was a suicide. I can't speak to all the details at this point because this has literally just happened really in the last week. But what I can say is I'm mortified by people don't want to talk about it, right? So like a lot of, and maybe you could tell me different, a lot of social media I've been seeing is kind of like, nah, we're not going to talk about that.
Speculation has swirled around 5 recent public hanging deaths that were all initially ruled suicides. Activists and some family members are concerned that those deaths may have been lynchings amid national outrage and demands for racial justice. The 5 deaths include 3 black men, 38-year-old Malcolm Harsh and 24-year-old Robert Fuller, both in California, and 27-year-old Dominique Alexander in New York. A 39-year-old Hispanic man, Fabian Rosas, and a 17-year-old black teenager also died in Texas.
From the media, and then obviously investigations, many of them have been concluded as, these are suicides. And before I pass it right to you, I'm going to just go ahead and say, I'm a black man. I know many black men. They're my family. They're my brothers. I don't know black men that hang themselves in public places. I'm not aware of that. So if that's happening for real, that's new and news to me.
I have my feelings on it. I don't know. I feel like they're not doing it themselves. I feel like we know what's happening. I feel like we don't want to address what's happening because to face the reality is a whole nother ball game. You feel me? So, like I said, I think I'm gonna jump right into my point. Like I said, in earlier podcasts, take arms, be ready to defend yourself at all costs because it's happening. We're being taken out clearly. Like it's clear we're being taken out. So just be ready to defend yourselves because yeah, like ain't no way just bodies all of a sudden now it's hanging as we gain momentum in other,
In trees.
In trees. How many people
at public places
to hang themselves? There's plenty of places in city limits. So not even just being a black man, a person in general. How many people going out of city limits or wherever they are to hang themselves in a tree? Come on, let's just be realistic about that.
I ain't never heard of it, family. I ain't never heard of it. But I will, speaking further to that, I would like to address white people's reaction to this. And I'm not going to say all, right, because that's what they don't like. Well, I don't want to be generalized. Well, I don't want to be hung from a tree. So, I think I'm going to trump you on that one. No pun intended.
See what you did there.
I don't enjoy white people. And not only with the hanging of black men, but I don't like this whole naivete. Like, oh my God, this is happening?
A growing number of Los Angeles County residents and even officials are demanding an in-depth investigation into the death of Robert Fuller, whose body was found hanging from a tree in a Palmdale, California park. Now, this is part of the Antelope Valley, and there is a history of neo-Nazi activity, hate groups in that area, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But I do think it's important to know about it in order to understand why people are skeptical of what the county sheriff department originally deemed in this case. They deemed that this was a suicide. The family is arguing, no, we're not buying it. We don't think this is a suicide, and we think that this should be investigated. So the 24-year-old's family is fighting to get a thorough investigation into this. And luckily, there are some local politicians who are signing on to it as well. So neo-Nazi groups have been reported in this area. There have also been Justice Department actions over alleged discriminatory housing and policing practices in Palmdale and the neighboring city of Lancaster. And I think it's also important to note that less than 2 weeks before Fuller's death, there was another Black man found hanging from a tree in nearby Victorville in San Bernardino County. Authorities say they were investigating the death of Malcolm Harsh, who was found on May 31st. Harsh's family told the Victor Valley News on Saturday that the explanation of suicide does not seem plausible.
According to new research, historians have struggled for years to figure out just how many blacks were lynched. Now, thanks to a new report from the Equal Justice Initiative, the numbers are coming into clearer focus. The Alabama-based organization said its researchers have documented 6,500 lynchings between 1865, the end of the Civil War, and 1950, including 2,000 attacks during Reconstruction that weren't even tallied in recent reports. We're just off of talking a lot about Tulsa, which was a mass lynching, a mass murder.
I've been getting that a lot the last about a month or so since this whole thing has kind of started, is white people telling me they just don't understand. Like, oh my, I didn't know. And honestly, if you didn't know, my response to that has to be because you didn't want to. Book right there behind me was written 2 years ago. All my brothers were speaking a piece. We spoke about a lot of the stuff that's happening right now. And I'm just saying my book in 2 years because it's my book, and that's a shameless plug, because that's the world we live in. But on a serious note, people like Dr. Claude Anderson been speaking this forever. You got plenty of Black intellectuals that have been telling white America that, yo, these things are a problem and we need to fix the system. We need to fix the system. We've been saying this. And so where I'm getting to now as a Black man, and you can give me your perspective, is that shit is offensive. If you're a white person and you're telling me you didn't know, or you didn't understand exactly how bad it was, I'm gonna have to place that blame on you because the work is out there everywhere if you wanted to know.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I was thinking about this at work today because I'm one of the people forced back to work. But I was thinking about this at work today, and before I even thought about doing this podcast this evening, I was at work and I was thinking about the scene from Remember the Titans when they went into the restaurant, and of course they got removed because they were Black, and Petey was snapping. I want to say it was Petey snapping, and Blue was like, he didn't know, and Petey yelled, he don't want to know. And it's crazy that you made that point just now. Like, if you don't know, it's because you don't want to know. You're cool with sleeping with your head under the covers and then waking up like it didn't happen. And at some point, that's some people don't seem to believe this, and me and you might disagree on this, but that's when we'll keep going further. Like, when y'all stop acting like it's not happening to us. You brought us here for this to happen to us, and now you're acting like it's not happening to us, and that's really appalling. And you know what? At this point, we're gonna start making you uncomfortable. We're gonna keep putting it in your face because now you're uncomfortable with it happening to us because all of a sudden y'all got bleeding hearts for everybody. But whatever, that's another topic. But we're gonna keep putting it in your face.
I think it's this topic.
Posting pictures. You're gonna see more of the Emmett Till pictures posted.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna see more of the I Can't Breathe posted. Don't ask me why I keep posting it because you need to see it. So you can't act like it's not happening.
Clearly. And I think that's unfortunate to me, is like, I got all these white people asking me, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can we do? Tell me what to do.
Victorville, I've been to Victorville. There's nothing happening in Victorville. Like, the decision to avoid covering that story was a conscious decision. I know I'm making a pretty strong accusation. I stand by that accusation. What could possibly be happening in Victorville that's so important that finding a Black man hanging from a tree doesn't make the rundown, not important enough. Anyway.
Not only didn't make the headlines, not only didn't make the front page, no news about it. None. Until then they finally find Robert Fuller hanging, and they're like, oh yeah, wasn't there a guy also hanging in Victorville? It's both damning of the media in there in the overall area as well as the police. So guys, one of the morals of this story is, for God's sake, put pressure on your local officials, both the police and the government. Without pressure, they're not going to do anything. But with pressure, hey, I might lose my job. All of a sudden, they find a way to care about you.
Like, well, damn, we've been telling you what to do for years. Yo, support Black people economically in a real way. yo, believe black people when they tell you, like, yo, that person over there, yeah, they don't like me. Not because I don't do my job, not because of the way I act, but simply because of the color of my skin. And I think for white people, I've run out of patience. I'm not running out. I've run out of patience of explaining this shit to you.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, if you're gonna come to me and want to talk about it, you better come to me with some knowledge. Don't come to me because I also don't have time for this, which is something else I've had to do a few times over the last couple weeks. I don't have time to explain history to you. I don't have time for that. I got a son, I got a life, I got things I need to go accomplish. I don't have time to sit here and talk to you about white flight or redlining or Jim Crow or, right, and maybe this is a good segue, why it's, and people, controversial statement alert, right? Or why it's possibly problematic for LGBTQ plus to be co-opting the civil rights movement right now. So I don't know if to kind of bring everybody up to speed, Supreme Court passed that, you know, LGBTQ plus individuals will now be protected under civil rights bill. And for me, and it's interesting because you hear certain people, and I'll say Billy Porter's name because that's the one I heard, call out Black Americans and compare us to we're the white supremacists of the Black community, or Black straight people are the white supremacists of the Black community. I can speak for me, and I feel everybody I'm closely associated with, Black people don't care about your sexuality. We just don't. We just don't, and I don't know if we ever did. Growing up in church, it was gay people. Like, gay is always, but we never, right? When we say Black Lives Matter, for my trans and my LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters out there, nobody's excluding you. And so to exclude yourself and divide the movement is problematic because, again, now we have to address several sets of issues, right? You're dissipating the energy from the original problem, which you were included in the original problem. And so to separate yourself, it does. It makes me look at y'all funny style because it's like, yo, we're finally getting a little momentum. Like, let's not get it confused. It is a little momentum in a very large struggle, but don't go separating yourselves and then, you know, ride on our backs, right? Because the civil rights movement, I don't know. You really got to do a lot of digging historically to really figure out that, hey, white LGBTQ people don't really look at their Black counterparts in an equal way.
Nothing more clearly illustrates that racism is alive and well in the gay community than this election season. Don't believe me? Ask the gays for Trump. Like a rich zaddy on Fire Island, the alt-right has penetrated the hearts of some impressionable young men. Overgrown twinks with a penchant for harassing successful Black comedians or purchasing followers on Twitter have become the fresh new face on the same reliable racism of yesteryear.
Black Lives Matter doesn't really care about black lives. People are killed by police about as often as they're struck by lightning, but I don't see many protests about storms.
Last I checked, we can't prevent lightning, we don't pay for it with our tax dollars, and clouds weren't caught on camera racially profiling people or shooting unarmed civilians. Oh, and while we're on the topic, you're actually 4 times more likely to be killed by lightning than a terrorist. But I don't see us bombing the shit out of storms.
Right? They engage in such things as gutter sex. You don't know what that is? Look it up, right? So there are different people out here moving, but again, the overall tone of this society is white supremacy racism. It has nothing to do with sexuality. And you have to understand that when you start to dwindle down what we're trying to do for the entire group of Black people, yourself included, you make people that are already saying they're confused, you give them another out. You've just now allowed people that are saying, I don't understand the movement, to be like, oh, now I definitely understand it. There's
I definitely don't get what's going on.
I don't know what the hell's happening now. Right? So, yo, we got you. You're on our side. You're on our team. But be on the team. Don't go try to go over there and co-opt and make your own thing. We got you. No one is advocating for trans, gay, whatever you want to claim. I am thoroughly and totally behind. Black people don't care about your sexuality. We don't. We never have. Do what you want to do. Nobody cares about that.
And to piggyback off what you said, to piggyback off that, like, yeah, like I don't care. And yo, I'm for free love. I'm for whatever, do whatever makes you happy. But like you said, that's not my fight. You're fighting for the right to openly love who you want, and that's fine. That is perfectly fine. I don't disagree. Do your thing. I'm fighting for the right to be treated like a human being, period.
We different.
You feel me? And that's what makes it different. So like I said, I'm not anti, whatever you are, LGBTQ plus. I'm not anti any of that. But understand, my fight is not your fight. And maybe when I get to a place where I can be treated a certain way, then I'll back you on your fight.
And that's my thing, though. Your fight is my fight. You're creating a new fight. We haven't won the other fight yet. Because while you're trying to go into this new thing surrounding sexuality and expressing who you truly are, which I totally feel like you should be able to do, the fight for your blackness is still set behind 200 years. And so you need to understand that when you start to talk to white people about, they can barely, or so they say, they can barely grasp the concept of race. Do you think they're about to now turn around and say, oh, LGBTQ plus, we get it. We totally understand. Your sexuality, you're this, and this. You need to marry this person. Like, yeah, they're going to be just as confused. So my biggest thing is, let's deal with one thing. Let's deal with one thing that affects you too first. Let's be on one accord on that first. Let's stop getting murdered and get our humanity first. And then, like you just said, my brother, once we get the humanity, hey man, I'm out there with you, brother. Let's get your right to fuck whoever you want, love whoever you want, marry whoever you want, be gender identified any kind of way you want. After your black ass is able to be treated like a human.
So since you said that and you brought up the controversial statement, I'm gonna bring one up too. Feminists.
Oh man.
Feminists.
I must confess that as a young activist, I often went to great pains to distance myself from feminism. Even when I was interpolated into feminism, I refused to answer the hail. I found myself at odds with what was mainstream feminism because although Black women were associated with some feminist movements, its public face was always white. And issues related to women were always handled too simplistically, as if they were primarily about affluent white women. This is why we call that feminism bourgeois feminism. Today, glass ceiling feminism, single issue feminism, feminism that assumes that only those women who are already at the top of the hierarchy and only need to penetrate the ceiling are the ones that really matter. You know, what about the women at the very bottom of the hierarchy? What about those women who worry about the floor collapsing underneath them?
Started.
Feminists. I love y'all, I swear. But right now, initially that wasn't our fight. Initially, our fight was for freedom.
Thanks. And y'all were down for that.
Exactly. And if you look at it, we always had that unity, that peacefulness within us.
Sure.
But then we had a certain people, as we fight for our freedom, to say, well, we're not being treated right either. The white woman, we're not being treated right either. And then tell some of the Black women, well, you guys are not being treated right. Well, we was good. Like, we not treated wrong. We was fighting for the same thing. So now that caused a division in our homes.
Absolutely.
Once again, I'm with you, but let's come together and fight this fight first. And once we fight this fight, I'm behind you 110%. I'm behind for whatever rights you want. I'll be in front. Not even behind. I'm front line with you.
For sure. And I can agree with everything you just said, man, because feminism is another movement that, I believe it's important, right? The glass ceiling is a very real thing, right? The wage disparity. There are real issues that need to be tackled. But before you can get to earning wages, you need to become a human first. Before you can get to identify what gender you want to identify with, you need to be human first. Before you can get to go marry, have sex with, and be out in public how you choose to be, you got to be a human first.
Right.
For we understand it as meaning all Black lives matter, women's lives, disabled people's lives, trans lives. And we know that we cannot defend Black women's lives without defending all women's lives. To speak up for Black disabled people is to speak up for all disabled people. To speak for Black trans women is to speak up for all trans people. Future understandings of feminism will recognize, I think, that the most productive path to the all, to the universal, is precisely through the particular. Is precisely away from the tyranny of the universal, beginning with the universal and eradicating eliding those who do not represent the universal.
So our movement is, you got to get there first. And that's what I think I'm not going to say people are misunderstanding. There's a disconnect because people are trying to fight for, right? You see an opening to some change and you want to change it for your specific group, especially Black men and women. Yeah, but your specific group is going to be the opposition of what we're trying to do. So what we're trying to do is get Black people to be looked at in this country as human beings, right? And that covers the law, right? No anti-Black racism. That covers the entire spectrum of all of us. It is odd, and I have looked, and I am open to anyone to explain to me, why would you take a fight about no anti-Black racism for all of us and then turn that into a specific female issue or specific LGBTQ plus issue? Like, why would you choose to do that when we're trying to get momentum for a certain thing? And again, maybe I am privileged in thinking that, right, we are all multi-faceted individuals, right? I am not only a man, I am a Black man. I am not only a man, a Black man, I am also a father. I'm not a man, a Black man, a father, I'm also a brother, right? So we all have multi-facets, but I can't right now come to the table and be like, hey, manhood is being attacked. Even though it is, and that's a real fight, that people are really trying to say that manhood, the way that I was raised up on it, to be toxic, a leader, to be strong, right? That's under attack.
Yeah, they're saying it's toxic.
Exactly.
Toxic masculinity.
But I can't then use my personal specification and then co-opt the movement that's for all of us. That's not okay. And at some point, I would love to talk to my brothers, sisters, and everyone else about, hey, the toxic masculinity thing. We can have that conversation.
We can speak about that.
After, I can't be a toxic man if I'm not a human first.
Right.
And so it all comes back to, we have a very specific agenda. It is to get Black people from every facet of life to be recognized as human beings. And then I know people hear that and they be like, oh, I totally recognize them as human beings. The system doesn't, and many of those individuals that say that absolutely don't.
They say that, but they don't really get what you recognize us as Homo sapiens, but you don't recognize us as human beings. You don't recognize the fact that we started 400 years behind you wherever you at in life. So your just get over it statement, we all have the same opportunity statement. That's not true. That's not true at all. And it's crazy. I'm about to change up a little bit. Did you see the video of the young brother out playing basketball and the cop car was rolling by?
It was heavy.
Huh?
Yeah, it was deep. It was heavy.
Tonight we're hearing from the father of this 9-year-old in Connecticut who was playing ball outside of his home when he hid from a passing police car. And the reason he gave is heartbreaking. Eyewitness News reporter Kimberly Richardson has the story.
You didn't think much of it, right? Obviously.
Of course not. Just watching him shoot some hoops and he was making his shots. I was super proud of him.
Of his 9-year-old son, Elia, who on a warm summer day in Trumbull, Connecticut, was simply being a kid. But then the family's home security system caught a heartbreaking image, the soon-to-be 5th grader reacting as a police car drives by.
When I got home, I asked him why he did what he did, you know? And then he goes on to tell me because they killed George Floyd. So that leveled me. You know, what do you say to that?
Right there, the camera shows Elia briefly hiding behind an SUV, barely moving an inch until the police car passes. It's only then that he goes back to playing ball. Stacy Pierre Lewis was at work watching the system remotely, got a notification there was motion in the garage. Never imagined he'd see this.
You feel, you know, sadness, you feel shock, even a sense of hopelessness I felt personally, just because I wasn't there to make him feel better.
The married father of 2 waited a few days before posting the video on social media. Millions have viewed the clip. LA legend LeBron James saying, "Breaks my heart," then writing a letter to the family.
Ultimately, I'm grateful this happened because it sets up an environment where you can have these sometimes uncomfortable but very necessary conversations with not, you know, just our kid, but, you know, everyone.
Stacy tells me since he posted that video, he's received overwhelmingly positive comments and feedback. Shortly after this happened, a police officer in their neighborhood stopped by to visit Elia.
We had another conversation, and ultimately the goal was just to be honest, with discretion, right? Because you want them to remain innocent still.
A roughly 30-second piece of video this father hopes ends up on the right side of change.
And if that don't move you in any way, no matter what color you are, to realize, yo, this is a child, so he's not doing anything. And to you, he's like, well, why would he do that? Oh, he's just being a kid. To us, it's like, yo, that's our lives. Like, that's our, we driving on the highway and we see a cop, straighten up real quick, no matter what, straighten up. Like, because if I get pulled over for whatever, it might end deadly for me. It just might end deadly for me. My family may never see me again. And yeah, and I just need people to understand that. Not I need white people to understand that.
No, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, white people specifically, but there's some coons out there too. I'm not gonna mention their names because I don't really want to speak that.
No, absolutely.
But now that video of that young man playing basketball in a driveway, and then to hide because he's seen a police car is heartbreaking, is sad on so many levels. And I think that's a brilliant segue to all my corporations, my institutions, my places of employment. Everything that's going on in the country right now is affecting Black people in a real way. Many of us. It's not just a post on social media. It's not just, this person's at the rally or this is a great speech. I've not been able to sleep many nights. I'm having nightmares. Like, this affects us on an emotional and mental capacity deeper than you. And I know you don't understand it. Clearly you don't. So I need y'all to consider when you're forcing these people back to work and your demand because of COVID is high. Hey, we need to get boom, 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 X, Y, Z. We need to work, we need to work, we need to work. Black people are dealing with COVID and all your demands, as well as, damn, I hope nobody don't come get me out my crib tonight and I end up in a fucking tree.
So I gotta get paid. Gotta support myself. So I gotta get paid. Make music for ourselves. So we gotta get paid. Don't sell your soul just so we can get paid. Money rule the evil, and we gotta get paid. Almighty dollar, and God we trust, say his name. I said I need change, but shit don't really change. Fam, the pain, damn, but I can't complain, man. Money on me, rain dance. I count the money, scoop your honey with the same hand. You with the G, aim.